Good evening, friends. First of all, thank you very much to come and join on Saturday evening. Anyway, Mumbai is locked down. Many other cities are locked down. We can't go out also. Well, why this webinar? And we, all five doctors, have come together for the first time because we saw a lot of confusion amongst people at large. And the biggest confusion is patients are telling doctors what medicine to give. That I never heard in my life, that a patient is directing the doctor what medicine to give. And why it has happened, that's what we are going to discuss. We are going to discuss that 1 year, COVID started 1 year, one plus, but still it is continuing. We were hoping, and hope is always positive, that it will get over after rainy season, after December, after this, after that. And then this is second wave. So that second question is, what is second wave? And can we prevent? What are the mistakes or what are the things which we do? And lastly, to understand the process from the horse's mouth, who are actually treating the patients. Let me tell you, all the four doctors, which I'm going to introduce now, are actually hands-on treating patients. So they are going to speak on their experience, not on the intellectual borrowed knowledge from articles. So what they speak is going to speak from the heart. They don't know any questions what I'm going to ask them. So why me? My name is Sandesh Mayekar. I'm a dentist. So why dentist? Well, everything starts from the mouth. And God has given only one mouth. And then you give from the mouth, and who takes in? Nose. So we have ENT, Dr. Ashish Bhunkar. Ashish is a very well-known ENT. I don't want to go into CVs of any of these doctors. You can Google them. And then once you get it from the nose, it goes to the lungs. So we got pulmonologist Salil Bendre, and Salil is also very well known. He's head in Nanavati. And then in between, we do a lot of testing. And another factor is patient on their own go do testing. Forget about doing testing. They see the figures and then they get panic. So what is the importance of figures in testing? We have got none other than Avinash Phadke, who heads SRL, laboratories which are more than 400 all over the world. And then after mild, moderate, if you want to get admitted and get into regular ward and then to ICU, let me tell you, friends, I myself had COVID year back. So I'm very much experienced into hands-on as a patient. And then for last 1 year, I'm doing counseling. My voice is gone because of that. So once I've gone to ICU also. So what is the difference? Why one has to go to ICU? We have none other than Dr. Khushru Bhajan who's an intensive care. And I know him personally very well for the last 15 years. And he's very much expert in this. So let me start from the beginning. Though most of you know how the COVID takes place, but let me start from Ashish. Ashish, just give a gist of how somebody can get transmitted to coronavirus, and then the disease called COVID.
So the nose is actually the gateway of all this COVID. Inside the nose, at a very simplistic level, if you think there are some different types of cells, they contain a specific chemical which this COVID virus simply loves. So once it goes into that, so it has a attraction to go into the nose, and in the nose.
One sec, Ashish. From where it is coming?
It's coming from the nose. Yeah, it is coming from, but it's coming from the opposite person's breath actually. More so when they are speaking. If they are coughing, that is when the droplets are generated in huge amounts, and this is where it is coming from. But you catch it by inhalation. Much more than the throat, there are special cells in the nose which contain a specific chemical. These Ace will not get into the terminologies, and these chemicals are what the COVID virus loves, and it enters those cells because they contain that chemical, and from there the journey starts. They get implanted. It is important to realize that the COVID virus enters the cell inside the nose or more densities at the back of the nose, because that is where you take the swab from. It does not lie simply on the surface. So this business of taking steam and kada and gargle, it's not like a cockroach on the wall which you can just destroy by heat. So this is something very important. Second point, just because the nose is the entry point, the importance of mask over the nose becomes absolutely important.
I'll come down to preventive later on. Ashish, I just want, what are the signs, what are the first symptoms patient get when they enter from the nose?
So unfortunately, it's not like the patient will get anything directly related to the nose. In fact, in the first wave, we were seeing a dry nose as rather than the conventional flu where you were getting nasal discharge and sneezing. So it used to be a dryish nose, burning nose, but the symptoms are predominantly in the throat, where you get irritation or you get a sensation of some thick jelly-like coating on the throat, which you feel like simply scraping out. These used to be the first symptoms, but not the general irritation that people feel with weather change or with exposure to AC. It's not a mild one. It's really something very special. Once you experience it, you realize that it's really something which you feel like putting a brush and cleaning away the throat. That is the sensation that the COVID virus causes in the throat.
So when they get this sensation, that's the sign or the symptom that they should, irrespective of whether they get fever or not, they should consider COVID, according to you, Ashish?
No, unfortunately, there are too many other things which can mimic, and this will create a psychosis if we just go by one single symptom. For sure, there has to be some other collaborating symptoms, and only then I think we can think. There has to be some element of fever. The distinct feature I find about COVID is unexplainably disproportionate tiredness that a patient feels. In none of the other viral infection, the degree of tiredness is the same as in COVID. So
my question to Salil now, that the virus has entered through the nose and then it goes, of course, to the lung. But Ashish mentioned about tiredness. So can you correlate between the entry from the nose to the tiredness, and why that tiredness? Because is lung playing some role in that?
Yeah. So as we all are talking about, it's a viral infection. So viral infection is something which not only affects the place of entry and place of increase, but it causes symptoms related to the entire body. That's the characteristic of a viral infection. For example, a person may have loose motions, but the entry of the virus is through the nose and it is going to the throat, but it is through the blood that there are a lot of antibodies formed, there are a lot of immune reactions which happen, and that affects different parts of the body. So headache, frontal headache, giddiness, weakness, tiredness, these are all symptoms of a typical viral infection. So it's a simple mathematics that viral infections means lungs as well as the bodily symptoms. Usually bacterial pneumonia or lung infection, which we hear, it affects only the lungs, and then there is a lot of cough and symptoms restricted more or less to the lungs. That's why there is some difference in the viral and the bacterial infections.
Can I just add? Yeah. So basically, as we are talking of symptomatology to try and identify whether someone has COVID or not, very rightly put by Ashish and Salil, that the entry point does not matter. That is for prevention. But as a symptom, to understand when should I report to a doctor or when should I do my COVID test, one statement I would like to make: in a pandemic, always it is COVID unless proven otherwise. So always get tested with the smallest symptoms. So now over the last 1 year, we have realized that there are changes in the symptomatology. So now COVID presents as typical and atypical symptoms. So the typical ones are already mentioned. You may have fever, or you might usually have fever. You will have a dry nose, you will have a dry throat, and so on and so forth. The myalgia would be severe, extreme fatigue, which is more than explained by any other fever, and so on. But one thing which Ashish would have mentioned is the loss of taste and smell, which is almost pathognomic in this kind of scenario. And losing your smell to COVID is okay, but losing your common sense and to COVID and going astray is different. Just a minute to tell the atypical symptoms, patients with even acute cardiac myocardial infarction, stroke, diabetic ketoacidosis can present as COVID. And diarrhea, as Salil said, is a huge factor.
We'll come down to details later on, but the basic, of course, Ashish mentioned a few minutes back to me offline that taste and smell. I said I'll come to that question, but that's one of the things which people face. But now, I mean, there's a confusion again, asymptomatic and symptomatic, whether I should do the testing, when should I do the testing. So, Avinash, what's the right time to do the blood test or whatever test you feel like?
Yeah, see, the COVID RT-PCR test, which is essentially a swab test that you collect the sample from nasopharynx and mouth. And
my question, Ashish, I mean, Avinash, when? First, when should...
That's what I'm trying to tell you. So this should be done on second or third day of symptoms, not on day 1. Ideally on day 3 morning, but at least day 2 evening. First day, you will have a lot of false negatives. So don't do the test on first day of symptoms. Ideal time will be third day morning, but if you are very anxious, then second day evening. That would be the right time to do a COVID RT-PCR.
Avinash,
the virus.
One of my friends.
The reason. Sorry. The reason being, what sir is saying, the reason being the viruses multiply. On day 1, there may be few viruses, but by day 3, the sample will be able to catch it. Therefore, the day 3 is important.
Day 3 morning is ideal, but sometimes patient is, and I must tell you one more thing. If the patient comes to you after 6 or 7 days, you are not going to get COVID test positive from nose or throat, then you have to ask for sputum, or if the patient is admitted, then bronchial aspirate. Then at least sputum is better because you are unlikely to get positive from nose if the patient is coming to you after 6 days, because some patients come very late to even do the testing. By then the virus has shifted the location from nasopharynx to lungs.
You know, I got an example with my friend who tested negative, but he could not breathe. So he got admitted. His test was again negative. And when he was discharged, he was positive. I mean, can you throw some light, Avinash, on these aspects of negative, positive, even after 4 days? So where are the fault is being, where the testing is not taken properly, the location was not properly. Can you enlighten public on this issue?
Yeah, I will talk about 2 types of tests which are prevalent. One is an antigen test. Now, what is antigen test? The advantage is it's rapid and can be done on mass screening. The disadvantage is you are going to miss about 40% of COVID positive patients in antigen test. It will come false negative. So a positive antigen test is fairly reliable, as false positives are about 5 to 10%. But a negative antigen test is 40% unreliable. So having said that, you come to COVID RT-PCR. The COVID RT-PCR, if positive, is almost 95 to 100% specific and accurate. But if it is negative, it is known that there are 20% patients who will be negative because of following reasons. One, initial viral load may be less. Secondly, the sample collection may be improper. And third, the viral culture media, what we call as viral transportation media, is not of good quality to preserve this virus. Remember, this is a RNA virus. Now, any RNA virus is a very fragile virus to any environmental this thing. That's why you will see that COVID vaccines, which are RNA vaccines, like Pfizer or Moderna, they have to be preserved at -20 or -80. So all these factors can result in false negative. And as I have said, if you start doing test on day 6 or 7, then you will have to see lung as a location and ask for deeply expectorated sputum or bronchoalveolar fluid.
So can we suppose I get a negative, I did a test from Ashish. Now but I got symptoms. So should I go back to Ashish or should I tell?
No, in that case, if you are symptomatic and the test is negative, you have corroborative evidence from symptoms as well as blood tests. So if you have a high C-reactive protein, if you have high D-dimer, and a simple test, what is very prognostic, we talk about D-dimer and IL-6 as if they are the only ones which rise in COVID. A simple blood count, in 85% of the patient, it is seen they have lymphopenia. That means the lymphocyte count drops down to below 20%. That is very characteristic because in no other viral fever, there is selective lymphopenia. So this simple blood test will alert.
One sec. Avinash, lay public are listening. I don't want this lymphopenia and all those things because they won't understand anything.
So low
That's for
lymphocyte
doctors to
count.
know. So let the people know that they should not read all these parameters and the figures. Let their doctor look into that parameters and figures. So what Avinash is not telling is for basically for doctors and not for the patients to understand.
Yeah, any report interpretation is best done by doctors. That is the bottom line.
One of the other things about before going to this is oximeter. Now I would like to go to Ashish again. That what's your Ashish and Salil, both of can tell about oximeter, oxygen level, how to check, because a lot of people are doing mistake. They're putting the oximeter on the, on their hand or on the table. So just explain basic thing where anybody can do oximeter. Ashish.
Salil can go ahead. Salil, go ahead.
So everyone should be knowing this because it's a very, very common instrument which is used now. And I mean, every patient who is having fever and cough is now started using a pulse oximeter. So first, let everyone know that it is a non-invasive test. Means we are not doing any blood test and we are actually not measuring the oxygen. It measures the color of the blood in the finger. So when you put a pulse oximeter, it shows a number. The more red the color of the blood, it will be 98 or 97. But at the same time, couple of things each one should remember that we have to place the pulse oximeter at least for 30 seconds. Okay, it should be at least for 30 seconds. There are people who have put on WhatsApp and shown me the videos of, I have put it is now 88 and they have removed it. Now should I go to the hospital? Or should I start my oxygen? Should I get a concentrator? Please remember these numbers on this will keep on fluctuating. You need to let it stabilize. So keep at least for 30 seconds. If your hand or your fingertip is cold, then the meter reading will not be authentic. It will not be correct. If you are having nail paints on your fingertips, the meter reading may not be correct. So please remember, for the general public, pulse oximeter is a good device, but you need to keep it for some time. And very important, I think now every person is educated with that, what is called as a 6-minute walk test. Means the person has to walk for 6 minutes if he is able to walk. Not that they are panting and they are breathless and they are trying to walk. Let's not do that. But if your saturation is say 95 and you are having symptoms, then please walk for 6 minutes, put the pulse oximeter for 30 seconds and again check the saturation. If the saturation has come down by 3%, so it has gone down to 92 or 91, it is a very important parameter. It is called a red flag. Red flag means there is a chance that you may worsen. There is a chance that you may need oxygen or hospitalization. So that is the important thing everyone should know about a pulse oximeter.
So what is happy hypoxia?
So happy hypoxia, again, see, we are indulging into a lot of medical talks because happy hypoxia.
I want in the late term you explain to them, because sometimes what happens, my oxygen is good, my oxygen is there dancing, and suddenly they realize that it has come down to 90. From 96 to they come down to 90. So is there any method that lay public can check every 3 hours, every 12 hours?
Yeah.
Want them to understand that they should not have a wrong feeling that they have got good oxygen.
Yeah.
So I'll just tell you, let's not go into that term of happy hypoxia. Happy means patient is fine or stable medically. Hypoxia means the oxygen is low. But that is a term which is not going to be carried away with the patients. For a patient who is talking to us on a video call or on an audio call and is telling us about his symptoms, remember this patient is the one who is having fever and cough or chest congestion, running nose, headache for at least 3-4 days, and he has taken help of a doctor. So for them, the only thing they should remember is that if the saturation is going down below 93, even at rest, below 93, please consider that you need to be having more cautious understanding, monitoring. You should, as Dr. Sandesh said, yes, you should monitor your saturation every 4 hourly for certain people with comorbidities. Again, we come to stratify things. Elderly people, diabetic people, bypass, kidney diseases, patients who are above 60, you may actually monitor every 2 hourly if they are having cough and they are having breathlessness. So that is absolutely in your hands, but do a monitoring and note it down and do the monitoring in a correct way so that the information given to your treating doctor is correct. Otherwise, the panic starts, and on phone it is finding a lab, finding a hospital, finding a bed, arranging concentrators. We don't want to do that.
So at this moment,
can I add a point?
Yeah, go ahead.
So basically, as Salil beautifully explained, the pulse oximeter is a good gadget to understand that your oxygenation is worsening over time. And the question that you added is happy hypoxia, which is nothing but silent hypoxia. So the patient's saturation may still be 95, 97, but he may be having problems in the lung, which may actually make him deteriorate very fast. So in the first wave, we've had patients coming to the hospital and just falling in front of us. So they were all good that time. And that is why what Salil said, the 6-minute walk test actually unravels this happy hypoxia. So if your saturations are 97, you do a 6-minute or a 3-minute walk test and you check it again, that will drop by 3%. That is the happy hypoxia patient who needs to be taken care of.
Now, here 2 things became. Ashish, if you want to join, you can join. 2 things. 3 minutes he mentioned and 6 minutes he mentioned. Now, for whom it is 3 minutes, for whom it is 6. If my oxygen falls from 95 or 96 to 94, or it is okay or in 3 minutes and 6 minutes. So can you just throw some light on these 3 minutes, 6 minutes?
So ideally it is 6 minutes. That is where it's like a stress test. Ideally it is 6 minutes, but you don't need to push yourself. Like Salil mentioned earlier, if they start getting breathless, they should stop. But minimum, if you can walk for 3 minutes and you can see a drop. So the ideal is to do a 6-minute gentle walk, not like running and jogging, but a gentle strolling walk is what is recommended. And ideally 6 minutes, but those who can't go to 6 minutes, minimum 3 minutes is important.
Okay, now let's come down to basic again. Quarantine, what is home quarantine? What is, like, I got some symptoms. I got some cough. I was talking to Ashish last year, I got some cough. First thing he has to tell us, what is the sound that cough makes you feel that it is not normal cough, but it is COVID cough? Ashish.
That I told you, unfortunately, it's a lot of people who have acidity and reflux. They have this tendency of clearing the throat. I mentioned earlier that there's a sort of a sensation of a very thick jelly-like mucus that is coating your throat. So there's an element that they want to use too much force to clear it. Actually, it's a swelling in the lining, but the patient perceives as if something is coating. And that very aggressive sort of a cough is what they're trying to do. Okay. Not pathognomic, but again, it has to be correlated.
Okay. Again, all 3 of you, asymptomatic, home quarantine means what? Which patient? First of all, let me tell all of you that don't be on the denial factor. Yes. There's a lot of denial factor. मुझे ये हुआ ही नहीं है, या ऐसा हो ही नहीं सकता है, पहले मुझे ऐसा ही बुखार आया था. Please don't go on denial factor. The first and foremost thing is, please stop watching WhatsApp and Google and news. The best person you have to communicate is your physician, with whom you should communicate first. If you don't have physician, then there are hospitals which gives you packages per day for 10 days. Or there are consultants who are available. Just book with them because they will monitor you every moment, every day. And that's the first suggestion to all of you, is that don't take it on your own body and don't listen to your friends. I read this WhatsApp, I read that WhatsApp. Please come out of all the groups which advises you on what to do in mild, moderate, severe, etc. Because medical problems are subjective. What problem I have, what medicine Dr. Bhajan is going to give me is different than what Ashish will have and Salil will give him. So every human being, body is different, physiology is different, so pathology is different. So please don't self-medicine and self-diagnose. First self-diagnose and then do self-medicine. Now let's come down to a very, very typical asymptomatic who is a carrier. What do you mean by that? Anyone can take this question.
No,
Symptomatic carrier means what?
no symptomatic.
Then I'll come down to precautions.
Typically, they see if one person in the family has got symptoms and his swab test is done and he's positive, then typically the other people in the family who don't yet have the symptoms or don't have the symptoms, they also do a screening swab test. And if that is positive, but the patient has no symptoms, no cough, no fever, no nothing, that technically is the asymptomatic patient. Because otherwise,
as you mentioned, after 2 days. So what happens to these family members? When do they take the test?
So family members should have at least couple of days exposure to a known COVID positive. So again, the ideal day to test would be after 2 days or third day morning, but it is not limited to family members. See, suppose you are having visiting maids or you are sitting in a car with a driver, you want to be sure that he is not having COVID. So you do his test or your household help, which is coming from God knows where they stay and commute in a crowded bus and visits you every day. Now, doing a COVID test on those is of no use. That's what I wanted to tell you, because they are not, it's not like a passport that my COVID test of my maid is negative and it is valid for next 15 days, because they can get it anyhow. Same applies to your driver. About your family member, they are in a confined space, and if they are negative, you can take them as negative. But anybody visiting from outside, a negative COVID in an asymptomatic situation is not a passport to be used indefinitely.
Anything from Salil?
Sandesh, we have to remember that 85% or 80% of our COVID population would be asymptomatic and mildly symptomatic. It's only about 15% which would be moderate and 5% would be critical or serious. So we are dealing with 80% which may be mild, very few symptoms or asymptomatic. And therefore you have to, as I'm saying again and again, think of COVID at all times and take precautions which you would then touch upon. So asymptomatic, we did a lot of home quarantine for asymptomatic. We realized along the way that they are now they are the super spreaders. So they are giving the COVID to every family member, irrespective of how much care you take, and also the maids that come in, etc. So very rightly pointed out, we need to take precautions because we can have asymptomatic people sitting with us around the clock.
So can we suggest, because yesterday I was talking to my friend in Bangalore while counseling, he said, Sandesh, I got positive. So I told him, instead of home quarantine, there are hotel quarantine, you got parents at home, you get out of the house. Yeah. You get out of the house and quarantine yourself in a quarantine hotel or somewhere where there is 24 hours nurse and doctor. Is that okay? Can we suggest this to people?
Yeah, so basically, sorry, may I take this, Salim? Yeah. Basically, what is happening is in India, you don't have only the affluent people, you have about 60-40 ratio. And if you look at Dharavi, etc., there is absolutely no home quarantine possible. So even for home quarantine, you need 2 separate rooms. If there are 2 or 3 members, you need toilets to be separate. That is another important thing. And that is not a luxury in India or in Maharashtra. So I think what you are suggesting is very, very good. And that's why initially the government also had made CCCs, which are called as the COVID care centers, where only the mild or the asymptomatic would be housed and taken care of at BKC, etc. So I think we need to understand home quarantine is not possible for 70% of our population.
I mean, but this today's variant, which spreads very much. Salil, you want to add something on this?
So what you were saying is absolute. See, let every one of us who are logged in today and listening remember that this home quarantine is to avoid you spreading to the community, so that it doesn't come back to one of your relatives in an indirect way. So you're actually protecting your friends, your relatives, your neighbors by not going out. So that is the first order. It is not so that you remain healthy. It is actually to prevent it going into the community. And as Dr. Phadke told in the beginning, there is a small window where RT-PCR can come negative. So if you have been with someone in the house and you have been in close contact, yet your RT-PCR comes negative, please wait for 7 days in home isolation, because you may develop the symptom after 5 days, 6 days, 7 days, and then you may actually start developing that this problem is there, and you may start giving it to others. So we need to be very, very certain about this aspect of home quarantine. It is very essential.
My question to anyone can answer. Suppose I have got 6 people in my house. I've got 6 bedrooms, no problem. But I feel internally that I'm heading for COVID. Can I immediately get out of the house and go on quarantine? Can we suggest this to people? Go on quarantine if somebody can afford the hotels or somewhere where you have an individual room and just get meals also there and separate toilet, everything separate. Can we suggest to those people?
Sandesh, mostly people who can afford would not want the family to be in 4 different hotels or 4 different rooms. So in a house, it's okay as long as you can maintain yourself.
Dr. Bhajan, I'm coming on to one fact. There are 6 people and I'm the one guy who feels everybody is healthy. He's the first one who is a danger guy. So he feels, I'm not telling everybody to go to hotel.
Yeah.
Everybody's getting there, everybody stay at home. But the first guy, before he has been tested by Avinash, because Avinash said 2 days you have to wait, but I feel Arogya Setu says that I have come in contact with somebody who was positive and I might get it. So in that case, can I go and quarantine is my question, so that before I become very active and give it to my family, I get out of the house.
Yeah, Sandesh, but there is a little catch there. Even in the hotel, there will be many other who are quarantined. And if you are going to keep the same principle that you are going to keep at home, to stay in your room, not come out to the lobby, etc., then it makes sense. But otherwise, yes.
No. But all hotels are like that. You can't come out of the room. You just can't come out of the room. So
Absolutely.
All hotels, those who are quarantine hotel, I'm not saying any hotel, there are specific quarantine hotels which have been identified from...
That is an overkill. Before a test report, if we do, it will be an overkill, and I think it will create a panic because everybody is imagining so many symptoms. It's impossible for even a doctor to on examination say this is COVID. So for a person to start imagining he has COVID, I think it may be an overkill to take such an extreme step. Within the house, I think probably he or she can start wearing a mask at best, and then so when you are interacting with family members.
Ashish, they will not even admit a person who has not got a COVID positive report for isolation. So I think it is an option, but only when you have turned positive and you want to make sure that you don't give it to others. That is a good suggestion. Just one word of caution to the everybody who is watching this, whether at home or whether elsewhere, don't presume that, okay, me, my wife, my daughter, my son, we are all positive, so we can have a gala party at home. You still should keep a 4 feet distance. You still should keep your mask and maintain things. And many patients say that, "Main to ghar se nikla hi nahi 1 saal, so how can I get COVID?" Which is so wrong, because you are allowing, as everyone mentioned,
I'm coming to that now.
Yeah.
So, I'm taking my question. Like Ashish said, you're going to create panic. So friends, don't do that when you get a sign, unless you become positive, don't go into quarantine. That was just a question came to my mind. I just want to share a video which most of people have seen it, about the wear of mask. Why should wear the mask? And then we come down that something in second wave, we'll come down to so-called second wave and double masking. So I'm sharing this video in English. See, it's quite a bit. And one of the reasons is people not wearing masks or not wearing it properly. See in this graphic, which I saw a couple of days back, when you say 1, 2, 3, 4, especially 4. See the aerosols coming out from the mouth. And they hang around even if you stop speaking. And if these aerosols are inhaled by the opposite person, he gets corona. If you wear the mask properly, and when you say 1, 2, 3, 4, see in this graphic, nothing is coming out of it. That shows mask is a must to prevent corona. But mask has to wear properly. If you wear it below the nose, you can inhale and get it. If you wear it below the mouth, you can give it to the opposite person. So friends, properly wearing mask is the only vaccine, and that vaccine which has got no side effects. Thank you. So this was about the mask, how to wear, but now the second thing has come, double mask. Can anybody throw some light on so-called double masking?
I will just share a moment on this.
Yeah.
First of all, when you are wearing a mask, many a times the mask is loose because those elastic strings are too long. So you can tuck it, means make a twist on it and make it a little tighter so the nose is properly covered. Now, there are enough studies when to wear double mask. If you are wearing N95, generally there is no need to wear double mask. But if you are wearing a surgical mask, then a simple cloth mask and a surgical mask is the best option. So if somebody is already wearing N95, he should not again use surgical mask. But somebody is only wearing a cloth mask, then he can in addition wear a surgical mask. That is the recommendation of the task force also. As
yeah.
Dr. Khusro will say.
I want to come to that. Salil, you want to say something? Because I want to say something on this issue after you people.
Please, you carry on.
You go ahead. Then I'll speak it. I'll speak my part.
No, I think what sir put up is absolutely right. So mask is very, 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 there are people which I'm sure everyone agrees, if they want to speak, they take the mask down and then they speak. While walking, they are all fine. They are wearing the mask. But the moment they are speaking to someone, first thing is they will take the mask down. And not only that, not even talking to someone, but even if they are talking on phone, they will take the mask down and they will speak. So these are the risks. I think everyone should realize that we are in a very, very severe situation, in a bad situation, and mask is something which everyone should wear properly.
Now, there are two things which I want to add.
Sandesh,
go ahead.
I don't know. I don't think this ek se bhale do sort of a thing works on the mask. If that, sir, mask was good to prevent the first wave virus, the virus has only mutated. Why do we need a second mask? The virus is same in terms of, its ability to be filtered or not filtered through a mask. I think it's just a psychological game. Ek se bhale do. I mean, I think what one could prevent the COVID, I think the second is not needed.
My addition is that first let's go to ground level. Poor people, they can't afford N95, they can't afford even surgical mask, so they go for a cloth mask. So if they're wearing a cloth mask, and you say this is the mask they wear, any cloth mask, this is supposed to be a cloth mask, they wear like this. So instead of going for the second mask, if they wear the shield, which is very nicely fitted, even my mask comes down by mistake like this. My shield is still protecting and I can breathe properly. I personally can't wear two masks. Only when I'm working on a patient, I wear it. So when we are working on a patient, we wear the mask and we also wear the shield. But for lay people, I feel, that's my suggestion, one mask, one shield. And shield is a must. Especially hawkers. When you see people buying something, how is this apple? They go so close to the person, it's not even 2 feet. And that person is not wearing mask for going down. So if we give a shield to the hawkers, that's the best thing. VIP has come. This is a VIP shield which has got something like a specs. So you can easily wear it. Second, Salil just mentioned about speaking. But Dr. Bhajan, you are in the task force. And I will also write to CM. There should be a notice on the public transport, in railway station, on the trains and the buses. Do not speak on the phone when you are traveling. Neither you speak to a neighbor when you are traveling, because that aerosols will come out. And for the high-rise buildings, there should be a notice in the lift. Do not speak in the lift. Do not talk to each other in the lift, because that aerosol will be in the small. If your task force can send this notice to everyone, I think people will not speak, the aerosol will not come out, and that is the one reason for getting COVID. So I feel These are the two suggestions. Which
I'll just take a minute to answer this. So why did second, I think what Avinash said was absolutely right. Why did the second mask come in? Unfortunately for the non-doctors, non-nurses, non-healthcare workers, the mask is worn more so that you don't get fined by the BMC or the police. So they are just putting it on when somebody comes and sees them or clicking a photo, and otherwise they are putting it down. So that really is the reason why people have said double masking, so that आप एक और दो नहीं निकालोगे. So that was one reason.
One second. We are talking to lay public and we are making them aware. So don't underestimate lay public knowledge now. So you have to tell them what to do. You can't tell them एक नहीं दो पहनो. They can't afford 2 masks for sure. And two masks.
No, I'm not for 2 masks. I'm not for double masking. What I'm saying is that the leaks that are there in the first mask, if not worn properly or not sized properly, would be as dangerous as, or even more dangerous than not wearing it. Because if the droplets have formed on the mask and you have put it down and then again put it up, you are causing more harm. So that was the only reason. I would say that wear only one mask for all occasions, but it should be a properly worn mask. That is one thing. As you rightly said about the shield, shield will protect any this thing. What is it called? Aerosols and other airborne infections from coming there. But talking and not talking is, you cannot lay so many rules where people will not follow them finally. They will probably look at the signage and give galis rather than talking. So masking should be always there, and no talking, as you rightly said, without a mask. So you don't, please, as Salil said, don't pull the mask down and talk. You can be heard beautifully through the mask. So if you have to take a call or you have to talk, it is just a liberal way. What you're saying, Sandesh, is right, but is it doable? So
yes, I'll tell you it's doable. I'm talking of 1 mask, 1 shield. It is doable. As Salil mentioned, that don't put it down, keep a distance of 6 feet or more and then speak. Yeah. If you see anywhere, double masking is in crowding, basically. If you're crowded, it's a double mask. So if you're crowded, is the mask and the shield. If you're not crowded, single mask and go away. Now, a message which you and me has to send it to people at large is that nothing should be inhaled. And to nothing to be inhaled, this has to be perfectly fit. Yes. Double is sure, then you can wear a shield. I have a very basic question. Can I inhale I get oxygen. I inhale the oxygen, which is 21% oxygen in my lungs. That gives to the capillaries. I breathe out carbon dioxide. Now here I'm putting a mask. I'm putting a double mask. Where do I get my fresh oxygen? How much I have to get my fresh oxygen from? I mean, it's very difficult to breathe on that. So I would like a solution where I can breathe. I remain basically healthy. I have seen people speaking on television, big shots, putting the mask and gasping for the breath. Yeah. I mean, the patient, someone has to be 10 feet away, put the mask down. Today, we are not wearing masks because there's nobody with us. So put the mask down and breathe yourself. So breathing is also very important. So there has to be some via media between these two things. You can't be hard and fast rule, 2 masks and this mask. Secondly, wearing mask at home. Now there is, we talked about, somebody said, I didn't go out and I got COVID. You know what happened? Somebody rang the bell and you just went and talked to them. So home masking, if you keep mask like this at home and the bell rings, it immediately goes up, go and talk to the person who is out. Keep a distance and put it out. But we can't keep masking at home with our family members. But before anybody comes to your apartment or house, you should put the mask and then open the door and make that patient, somebody sit away from it. These are the small things which are that people got it because they opened the door, and you require only one person positive and some aerosols to get you positive. So that's what it is. Now let's come down to the next section. It's coming down to mild and medication.
Only one point. Since you were showing the mask, you can actually tie a string at the end, so that it remains more snugly fit rather than just put the elastic. So that is something I just thought it's very important for everyone.
That's the best thing to do. Now let's come down to medication. Okay, I'm asymptomatic. I got fever, and then I become mild. And I got a list on the WhatsApp. If you got mild, you should take this. You got moderate, you have to. I mean, I'm failed to understand how somebody can write like this and give it to public at large. Tomorrow they might say you got a mild heart attack, you should take this medicine. I mean, you just can't write medicines. You can give suggestions to go to a doctor, and doctor is the one who can give the medicines. So today, I don't want you to tell what patients should take, but I want you to tell doctors what to take. So this is not for patients, but doctors, like, suggestions to doctors who in turn talk to patients. Here, let's believe that doctor is the first contact. Symptoms, physical examination is the first thing. A family doctor who knows your full body for so many years is the first point of contact, and not WhatsApp and not anybody messaging. So can both of you discuss, even Avinash come into picture? At first, let's go to Avinash. What is the mild and moderate according to blood test?
I will tell you, there is a first of all misconception that COVID test report has something called as a CT value, which is cyclical threshold value. And every patient now knows that the lower CT value means a serious illness or a high viral load, and a higher CT value is just borderline and you can ignore. And I don't know how it has spread, or it's a misinformation. What CT value means is the amount of cycle taken for viral detection. So if your load is low, you will take larger number of cycles, which are duplicating cycles in a PCR machine to take a signal positive. If your high viral load, then it will be naturally occur at a lower cycles because you have initially got high viral load. But always remember that the viral load is always high in the beginning, in the first couple of days. Then secondly, if I take the sample from nose and throat, for the same patient, the CT value differs. So all you can say about CT value, that a low CT value definitely means you have high viral load and you are more infectious, but it doesn't determine the clinical outcome of the patient. Similarly, a high CT value, a borderline CT value in a patient who had COVID and has virtually fully recovered tells you that the high CT value now is no longer infectious. Probably you are detecting dead virus. The value is closer to 34, 35. Apart from that, you cannot draw clinical conclusions that a low CT value means a serious illness and a high CT value means a mild illness.
And let's come to the next one. What are the other typical tests we do and what we see?
Usually that
I would like, Salil, you want to come in between? Salil, you want to say something?
So sir, in fact, Dr. Avinash only, then why do you actually mention the CT value?
See, the CT value is mentioned for two reasons. One, most of the clinicians want it. They insist. If you see the ICMR guideline, the original guideline told the labs not to mention CT values. But then the Microbiologists Association of India took out a circular that there is no clinical correlation between CT value and the clinical outcome. And this is data world over, barring few exceptions. But clinicians started insisting on a CT value. It helps us in a way in judging the infectious nature of the illness. So if you have a low CT value, you know this person is highly infectious compared to a person who has a CT value of 34, 35. But as I said, it cannot be correlated with clinical outcomes. So the demand is from clinicians.
Can I ask you, Avinash, all this time, if I am not mistaken, most of the pathology lab used to take tests referred by a doctor. Now I see so many people self-referral. So is it, your association-wise, is it ethical that a self person coming and asking for the test, or you insist that the doctor should refer?
See, ideally it should be a doctor referral, but in India, there is no law that a self-referral is invalid. For example, a COVID test can be done without a referring certificate from the doctor. So the patient is entitled to have a test by his own.
Now. Earlier it was not so,
Earlier it was not so. At the moment, the tests which are commonly performed are simple blood count, C-reactive protein, apart from ferritin, D-dimer and IL-6. Now, I won't go into detail, but let me tell you one thing. the tests don't determine whether it is COVID. Once COVID is proven, then we look at the test. The test, suppose your C-reactive protein is high, it can be high in any acute illness. Suppose somebody has falciparum malaria, we have seen his D-dimer is high, IL-6 is high, C-reactive is high. So that doesn't determine you have COVID. What it determines that you have acute insult to the body, you have acute inflammation. What is the etiology of that inflammation? Only the clinician and COVID tests will determine.
So my question to you again, Avinash, that people see 4 factors, CRP, IL-6, D-dimer, and quarantine. Can you tell us that in many conditions this can change? So ultimately it is between the patient and the doctor, and not patient should not get panic looking at the figures. It is a doctor who check them, can tell them what is the situation.
Yeah, see, Sandesh, you are absolutely right. Barring intensivists or pulmonologists, the test interpretation is difficult even for an average physician. Forget the patient. For example, I will tell you, C-reactive protein rises very fast and comes down very fast, while ferritin will rise more slowly but will come down after months. Now, D-dimer borderline elevations don't mean anything. So what we rely on, as Salil and Kushav will tell you, is an increasing level. So suppose your C-reactive was X or D-dimer was X, IL-6 was X, and it becomes X plus double in 2 days. That has more value than a single reading, and we correlate it with patient's clinical symptom. One thing I wanted to tell you, I have seen this IL-6 reports going wrong heavily. The reason is if you don't collect in EDTA Vacutainer and run the test immediately, the transportation from plain tube can elevate the IL-6 value almost 50-fold. So people are not aware of it. So all these precautions need to be kept in mind.
Avinash, I am the live example. Thursday IL-6 5, Friday IL-6 7, Saturday IL-6 70.
Yeah.
So I might as well, they pushed me to ICU, IL-70, because the reports were not
wrong. Because these collection issues are very common in IL-6.
So we have learned over a year, Sandesh, that these reports earlier we used to follow that. So this year, I'm sure doctors and everybody is becoming more and more aware that these are not important. And Salil had done a very nice discussion 2 weeks ago, which Sandesh you also attended. And we discussed all these parameters that they are not really helpful as biomarkers. You need to take right precautions, do the right test, and above all, whether it is mild, moderate, or severe or asymptomatic, monitor yourself with a doctor.
Salil, what do you want to say?
Ask the ideal time.
The pulmonologist.
The first test, just like he said, third day should be the RT-PCR. Which day to do the blood test, day 1 and subsequent which days?
So usually when you do RT-PCR, that is the time to do blood test. Even if you have fever for 1 day and you want to do malaria test, you have to wait at least for 24 hours for parasites number to rise to be detected. So if you do test within 1 hour of fever, no fever is going to come positive, whether it is malaria or dengue. So you should wait for minimum 48 hours ideally for any blood test to be performed.
Salil, you want to add something?
Yeah. So as Dr. Sandesh, almost most of the listeners are non-medicos. We need to give them take-home points. One is that when you have got a COVID test, please don't yourself go and do a CBC, CRP, D-dimer and packages which are put up or come on WhatsApp. Okay, you need to do this. They are not always essential. And if essential, then please do it only and only if your doctor advises to do it. That is one. You're wasting your money. Let's put it this way. You're wasting your money unnecessarily by doing this entire number of tests right on day 1 just to know what's happening. That is one. Secondly, if at all you have got any report with you, please don't Google that D-dimer is 1000. That means I need and blood thinners, because that's something which is so common now. कि blood thinner जरूरी है, नहीं तो COVID बढ़ जाएगा, मेरे को oxygen कम हो जाएगा. So please understand, just by seeing 1 D-dimer is 700. Don't start running and thinking, okay, blood thinners I need and I need to be in the ICU, I need to do this and do that. See, this confusion is only happening because you are now seeing these reports today because of this media. See, we can't blame the media. Plus,
social media.
Pros and cons. I mean, in today we can't escape media. No one can escape FB and WhatsApps and Google. It's part of life now. But they need to authenticate the information which they have got. There is a lot of information, but less of intelligence. So we should authenticate this information and only then apply it to you or your relative, whoever is in your house.
I have got one more question coming back now. Each HRCT. Now I was surprised. One of my friend calls me up. Doctor is not doing HRCT. Doctor is not doing HRCT. I mean, hello. Doctor will decide to do HRCT. When to do HRCTs. I want to throw light on this HRCT because CT scan means radiation is quite a bit. Is X-ray first, then radiation, or whatever you, Salil and Khushru, can just let
Salil, go ahead. You are the right person.
So again, I'll be a little explanatory about this CT scan. So disease, as far as COVID, for the people who are wanting to know, COVID has an evolution of a disease, a peak of the disease, and a decline of the disease. So the timing of any investigation is important. The timing of any investigation. Okay, so please remember, blood test, CT scan, repeat blood test is all based on the time of this disease, the 3rd day, 4th day, 5th day, and so on. That is one. Second point, first 4 days of the symptoms, CT scan comes normal in most of our patients. So you may actually, if you insist on a CT scan, even today CT scan is not requiring a prescription. People walk in and they do a CT scan and come out and they pay 6,000 rupees and CT scan is normal and they feel, oh, I don't have COVID. Please remember, the CT scan abnormality starts after the 5th day. So don't be under a false impression also that you are fine and now nothing, I can go out, I can be fine with everything, I don't need to talk to a doctor. Don't do that. That's the wrong part of it. Thirdly, if you are doing a CT scan and it comes up in the 6th day something, please don't go by the scores, because there is something called a scoring system which is very, very rampant. Okay, it is as rampant as the IPL score, and it is more popular, I can say, than the IPL score. So a score of 12 and score of 13, and the moment they see that the score is more than 8, which now everyone knows, कि mild यानी 8 से कम, 8 से 15 यानी moderate, 15 से ज़्यादा यानी patient को ICU की ज़रूरत है. Please remember, every test is to be applied only and only according to the symptoms of the patient, the day of the disease, and the comorbidity in that person. Only then you can be treated properly. Otherwise, you will damage your own treatment. There are people who are wrongly getting admitted, wrongly getting treated, wrongly starting steroids, and so on and so forth by themselves because of the panic. So we need
also Salil, people do not want to do an RT-PCR because the BMC will come and isolate them or contain them, but they do a HRCT as a substitute to the PCR. So that is also wrong, and these myths need to go out to the public.
I would like to give my example. What Salil mentioned, same thing happened with me. It was a first wave. I did a CT scan. It was practically normal. And Avinash knows, when I did it on the 9th day, it showed some moderate signs when I got admitted. So the point here is, please, friends, those who are listening us, doctor's advice. You know, you can select a doctor. That is your prerogative. But once the doctor is selected, it is his prerogative. And I said in my last webinar also, if I select Dr. Salil, even if he gives me poison, I'll take it, because I have selected a doctor, and if you give confidence to the doctor, he will treat you rightly. Now, yesterday I heard a webinar in which a Delhi doctor said, a patient was critically ill and he doesn't believe in certain medicines. I'm not taking the name, he doesn't believe in certain medicines. And this patient said, no, we give it. And he has to give it. So I would like to ask both of you, Salil and Khushru, what happens if the patient insists that you should give ABCD medicines, especially Remdesivir? I mean, I don't understand why that Remdesivir has become, when WHO says it is banned, people don't believe in that. Still, people are running after that. Is something which doctors are recommending, or patients are insisting that I want that?
Yeah, so this is not a very easy answer to take, and I'll take just 2 minutes to
I just want
just crisp information.
Patient, that's all.
Yeah. So basically, remdesivir will happen in the hospital, and there you may have a politician who wants that. But let me start from the basics. So instead of making people aware, I think we should make our doctor colleagues aware. When I get a reference for a patient on the WhatsApp, I hate it, but I have to do it. So they will come with a prescription of a GP who gives this. And then ivermectin, chloroquine, azithromycin, doxy after 5 days, name it, and everything which should not be given. So they ask me, how many days should I take it? Is the prescription okay? And I say that honestly speaking, none of this. So if you ask me, I would strike out everything. Then they would say, okay, why is my ferritin high? And why is this high? And why is my CT score high? So it's very difficult for the public, where a general practitioner might tell them take this, and then a consultant level person tells them don't take anything. So I think we as a doctor community needs to come together and standardize our approach. And for those, correct me if Salil and everyone, if I'm right, because I know I'm going to be thrown out by the doctor fraternity here, but I feel we need to standardize ourselves in treatment and not play on the minds of the public. So we need to nurture ourselves with the right scientific knowledge, what works, does not work. And you should be authentic in telling that you are asymptomatic, monitor your oxygens. When your oxygen saturation drops or your 6 minute is positive, report to a hospital, because now is the time you need hospitalization, etc. In the so we have realized even in critical patients that get admitted, oxygen alone will be useful. A proper ICU management, low molecular weight heparin for the clots, because 35% of our patients can develop some form of thrombosis, and all others are accessories in my view. Remdesivir, yes, it had a role earlier where it reduced the viral load. So it should have been given early, but not after 9 days, and so on and so forth. One drug which is misused is the steroids. So we had the recovery trial, and it says that Dexona works brilliantly. But people don't read, even doctors don't read, that if it is given in the first 7 days, and if it is given to mild cases, the mortality is more.
So we are coming from coming from the steroid. Can we go to ENT again of the fungal infection, which is taking a front page today?
But can I since you are on the task force, would this not be very appropriate for the task force to start coming? We need some body which is credible. Now, an odd question, within the task force, the several consultants, is there a consensus? Is each one treating as per a protocol, or each one is a very personalized, I choose to give?
So very, very important. I'll just answer this in a half a minute. We have guidelines laid down, Ashish, by the task force, which are available as protocols and versions. Every drug, every oxygen, everything is discussed in detail. And you can check the DMER site, you can check the task force site, and so on and so forth. So we have done videos in trying to train this.
My problem is, Khushru, my problem is, this is, instead of seeing doctors, more patients are seeing it, and they started treating themselves at home. That is a boomerang in a different way.
Yeah.
So can we, I know about Dental Council of India. Can a MCI can do a crash course on, as a CME compulsory for doctors on how to treat COVID? So you come down to consensus.
Sir, shall I come in 1 minute? Yeah, Kushra, please finish.
Sandesh, excellent point. And in fact, just 3 days ago, we met up with the Chief Minister, Honorable Chief Minister, who said that all the GPs and everyone, we as a task force, take a clinic for them for an hour, a CME for education. So you are absolutely thinking in the right way. And we need this very, very important.
You should tell an MCI president and make it compulsory credit points for this, and get people who are actually working on patients to give a lecture and speak on that, so that they get the hands-on experience, because that's something should be open only for doctors who are treating COVID patients and not to public at large.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Salim.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to make one point. Like, we know about TB. Okay, I'm just giving you an example. TB we know since when? March 1882. And today, if we try to see, are the prescriptions adequate and correct and properly given? No, it is not so. Okay, I'm just telling you an example. And what is the commonest cause of death in India today? It is still tuberculosis.
Absolutely.
Okay, so there are difficulties in applying and of course having a guideline, no doubt. Task force is doing a superb job. But sir, coming back to your question of remdesivir and the patients, reading this, or rather patients suggesting to that, I think that was your most important point. So here we need to tell everyone who is with us today, everyone, remdesivir, even if the doctor has told you, even if the hospital has suggested to you, even if the hospital has prescribed to you, please remember that it is not a life-saving medication. So don't be under that impression.
Salil say 3 times. Salil say 3 times.
So see, our job here is to explain to the people that it is not a life-saving drug. What happens is that, unfortunately, some patient expires, but the entire brunt is because he did not get remdesivir. Okay, it is considered that, oh, if he would have got, agar wo milta tha na, to patient at least bach jata tha. And that applies to the next patient, because this patient's relative tells his friends कि वो मिला नहीं, हमने 4 जगह ढूंढा, 2 दिन गए लेकिन मिला नहीं, तीसरे दिन बेचारा हमारा पेशेंट एक्सपायर हो गया. So those entire 10 people tell other 30 people कि if your patient gets admitted, then you have to get remdesivir, otherwise patient will not survive. So we have to keep on telling them it's a drug, it's an antiviral drug, it is not a placebo. Please remember that it has antiviral properties, but it reduces the hospital stay by 2 to 3 days.
Yeah.
That's all. So don't be under the.
This leads to the black marketing also, na? Many doctors should not write it because it does not. There's no magic bullet.
Yeah.
And as Salil said, we have realized over the years that nothing really works, and you just do your normal hospital practice of oxygen, steroids at the right time, the right dose, not overdoing it, because now we are seeing so much mucor.
Krishna, this is for doctors to give medicine, and no patient should take medicine on their own. So what we are discussing and what Salil rightly put forward, friends, please. Accident hota hai. You are driving a car without your fault, somebody comes and hits you. Similarly happens with your COVID. Without you have taken a lot of precautions, but unknown person comes and gives you COVID. That happens, so you can't blame anybody. Now, the second wave, I just want to, Avinash, what is the second wave and what is the difference between the first wave and what do you expect in the third wave? Because now we read on the front page, we are preparing for the third wave. I mean, are these waves going to come, or is there something which can be restricted? So then I want to come down to vaccines. So is there a way where we can be little relaxed, or we have to be always under tension that next wave is coming and next wave is coming?
The first wave, as you saw, was much less severe than the second wave. Now, why it is so? Sometime in October last year, we picked up this double mutant strain, but we didn't know the strength of it. The problem in India is, out of COVID positive patients, very few are going to ICMR or government bodies for next-gen sequencing to know the exact mutations. Now, people are reading about double mutations, and double mutations are not prone to anti-vaccine therapy. Means even if you have taken vaccine, they are saying the double mutations don't protect. Now, what is the truth behind it? Now, most of the vaccines are directed towards the spike protein, which is there on the virus surface and which allows the entry into the cell by attaching to what is called as a receptor binding domain. Now, antibodies generated by vaccine are directed against a particular type of spike protein. When you say double mutations, the double mutations occur in the region of spike protein, and the nature of this spike protein changes. So the antibodies which were specifically produced against earlier spike protein may work only partially against the new spike proteins which have mutated. So there is a certain degree of escape. And we have also realized that this is much more infectious. So what will help? If you really want to avoid third wave, the percentage of positive cases which should go for next-gen sequencing Currently, India is about 0.1%. In UK, it is 5%. In US, it is 5.6%. So this percentage should go up to 2% because each state has its own variant. It is not that double mutant is the only variant.
Avinash, lay people are listening. Can you tell them what is sequencing, if you can tell them in a layman's terms?
So next-gen sequencing is a machine in which you can identify the alterations in viral genome. A virus, generally when we do a COVID test, we identify 3 regions on any virus. These are called genes. There is something called as RDRP gene, something called as ORF gene, something called as N gene. So the test detects it. Now,
so what is the third wave?
Yeah, the third wave is if you have vaccination program which is ongoing, then the third wave will be much, much lesser. Now, double mutation also you have to remember, if your level of neutralizing antibody is very high, even a double mutant, you will get protection with current vaccination. Both Covishield and Covaxin will prevent double mutant if you have adequate level of antibody titers. But the ability to fight this double mutant will be less than their ability to fight the earlier corona, which was the original corona. I hope I have simplified.
So, but now
Sandesh,
the question,
so can I just add a sentence? Yeah. So basically, for the common people, as Dr. Avinash is saying, the double mutant or triple mutant seen in Bengal does not really matter. And we also should know that the vaccine, even if it is 80% or 70% successful, at least the vaccination prevents the serious disease. So that is so important that as a common person having all these doubts, whether I have a double mutant or whether I have a triple mutant and will the vaccine work, at least it prevents the serious disease. So I think we should convey to them that double mutant and triple mutant, which we are seeing in Maharashtra and Bengal and other South India, we need to understand that that is more for epidemiology, more for testing, more for us to understand how to prevent the third wave. But for every common people, vaccination is the key, whether it is an immune escape or not.
Now, my question, like Avinash has answered the question. Yeah, Ashish, coming. Ashish, want to say something?
Post-vaccination, less number of people are going to die. People may get the infection, but they will not die. And I think that is
that's the most important message.
Now, as we are saying that vaccination, I don't hope my listeners are going to rush tomorrow that I want vaccine. Please wait till your turn comes in. 5-10 days plus minus will not affect. And as Avinash just mentioned, Covishield or Covaxin, there is
I have a question for Avinash.
Can I finish this?
Sorry, okay. Yeah. Okay.
So whether it's Covaxin or Covishield, whatever is available, both has got different roles to play, but you have to take it. So that's very, very important. As and when your turn comes in, just take this. Ashish, go ahead with your question.
Does the patient have a choice of requesting for the sequencing?
No, patient doesn't have a choice. Patient doesn't have a choice. It's a research body, so we can't even charge the patient for sequencing. We send it from every major lab. The government collects the percentage of positive samples at random for gene sequencing.
When you say it has to go to 2%, who's the decision maker for this?
The government lab facility should be able to tackle so much load. At the moment, they are unable to.
Khushrav, I want to ask the second question to you as a task force. Do you have a virologist on the task force?
No, we don't have, but we follow all the guidelines and the scientific data, and we discuss every week and we come out with discussions. So,
my question again to Avinash, some people have asked the question just now, is I've taken vaccine but no antibodies.
So that happens, Sandesh, in 4% of the patient as per our study and ICMR study. The ICMR study is larger than ours, done by Dr. Sengupta. So what I am quoting is from his study, and our lab has only data of about 4,000-5,000 patients. Because unless you have completed 2 vaccines, and in most of the cases, the data is pertaining to Covishield because that was the earlier vaccine. I don't have much data on Covaxin. So this, let me clarify. About 4% of patients who have taken Covishield may not develop antibodies at all. 20% will develop antibodies which are less than desirable. 80% develop very good levels of antibody. So now what to do with this 20% who develop a poor response? Now these 20%, even with poor response, apart from antibodies, they have developed some T-cell immunity. We cannot judge person's T-cell immunity only by doing an antibody test. So like Khushrao said, like doctors have said, that the protection may be less in these people, but it will be enough, we are hoping, to prevent a serious illness or a death. Now, the second question they ask is, if my antibody titer is low, then can I take another vaccine? At the moment, the answer is no. And who are the luckiest people in India today? The luckiest people are the ones who had mild COVID and developed very good antibodies. And even luckier, like Sandesh, yeah. And even luckier are those who had mild COVID and have taken one dose of vaccine, because in them the level of neutralizing antibody is almost 4 times those who never had COVID and taken full 2 doses of vaccine. So but then nobody wants to have a natural illness just to get adequate titer of antibodies.
But to look at the positive side, if somebody gets it very mild, as you have antibodies, you know, and when I got COVID, the first day was tears in my eyes because my mother is with me. And then I was alone in the hospital. I realized you come alone, you go alone. And you can't do anything. There's nothing called fear factor. अरे डर के तो किसके डर हो? अकेला तो बैठा हूँ. So there's no point in getting afraid and fear for what? So the point here is smile. I mean, being a dentist, I always say smile. Smile with COVID. I mean, your mind. I mean, I do counseling. I do a lot of counseling, but I don't give medicines. I ask Khushrao, I ask Rahul Pandit, I ask Ashish, because they are the doctors. I ask Avinash, they are the doctors, but I play with their mind. And the playing with their mind is making them so positive. अरे हो गए अभी रोने से क्या फायदा है? हंसो, listen to good music, see the comedy picture, put up your WhatsApp. You know, don't look at the news, because that news thing is very bad. When I got it in May, I stopped my television in April. Then they used to say somebody died in the UK, somebody died in Italy. मुझे क्या करना है? मेरे को protect करना है. So the best thing is, you know, like all of you, if you protect yourself, don't look at your wife or husband, protect yourself. Husband said, don't look at a wife, protect yourself. And if everybody protects themselves, I think we don't require policing also. Where we lack is when we are forced, put mask, nahi pehnega. You know, that's the attitude of people. I mean, mat pehno, aapko ho jayega. It's not government fault that many people are getting it. Yes, not getting certain things in time is a different story. We don't go into that politics. But then it's your fault if you drive rashly, you do the driving and met the accident, it's your fault, you don't blame anybody else. So masking, shield, whatever is protecting you and your family is the best thing. Don't do self-medication. Okay? Now let's go to the last factor, and that's for Khushrao. Once the patient is admitted, and even to Salil, we lose the contact with outside world. Your family members can't come and see you. And there are people who say that, oh, I didn't see my dad or somebody dying. My sincere condolences for those who loved ones have passed away, unfortunately. So what is that you can communicate? The problem here is patients' relatives die faster than the actual patient. They die every moment because they don't know what's happening inside. So is there any methodology that you two follow to communicate with the patient's family members, that what is the situation of the patient?
Sandesh, I'm so glad that you asked me this question, because management, ICU management, hospital management, everyone does it appropriately. But we realized in the first 3 or 4 months that, as you pointed out, the relatives are completely oblivious to what is going on, what is the oxygen saturation, etc. So very in the beginning, at least in Hinduja, what we did is we did a video system. So we had an iPad put in every ward or every ICU. We would make the resident on duty at every shift call up the family. At least we would say one person in the family, because otherwise it would be meaning 10 calls. So one person in the family, we would do a video call. We would also show the person and the patient and let them talk. Later, we realized that even the cell phones are allowed, and on their phone, we would say you call up any one relative, and if they want to talk to the consultant also, we would do. So we are doing this from the very beginning, and as you rightly pointed out, that has alleviated a lot of apprehension in the family members, and also taken away the medico-legal cases, because people still think that in a hospital, doctors don't care, they don't get food on time, they don't get urinals on time, doctors are scared themselves and nurses are scared, so the patient is just lying there to die. So a good communication is the key, and thanks Sandesh for asking this, because it is very close to my heart.
Let me tell the viewers, I was in hospital, and a few patients, dentists, they say, how come you are practicing? I said, if I stop practicing today, and if my doctor in the hospital who's treating COVID positive patient, they also say, we also have families, so we should stop working, I think nobody will treat. The respect the respect for those people who are wearing PPE, the one who swabs, the one who checks my blood, the one who checks blood pressure, besides the doctors, are the most important people. And they are to be elevated. Every time they come, I will request somebody's relatives in the hospital, just talk nicely with those boys and doctors. They are also human beings coming in PPE. I think you should wear PPE just as a fancy dress and see how much warm you feel inside. And in that 8 hours, you have to see patients. So you have to be very jovial with the doctors. You can't be, I know you are loved in the hospital, but you can't help it. Whatever the doctors are doing their best. So if you speak nicely with the doctors and the ward boys and everybody, I'm talking to audience, be nice with doctors. Doctors require nice words in there. You are taking care, thank you very much. But how is the condition of my family? Kushrao, you mentioned, so my suggestion, if you people tell the patient that you are fine, your oxygen is good, your parameters are good, just inform the family members. That much is sufficient for family members.
No, they want to hear from the doctors. So what we have done is at least one call a day for every family member is done. And we tell them that if the patient has any new event, like a drop in saturation, we will immediately convey to you. So that is needed.
What you do?
No, we do the same. We are also doing calls, and as Dr. Kushrao said, video calls are now easy with WhatsApp calls and video calls. So it at least gives the patient also confidence, the relatives also confidence. But here I will tell some examples which happen. When we go for rounds, trust me on this, Kushrao will agree that when you ask the patient, "Aapko kaise lag raha hai?" his answer is, "Sir, IL-6 120 aa gaya." Because the reports have gone to the relative. The relative has sent the reports to the patient on his phone, and he has told the patient that when the doctor comes, please ask him, are you going to start tocilizumab to him or not?
So friends, those who are listening, you are the culprit to create fear in your patient's mind.
Everyone is
read the reports here.
COVID is a very scary thing, Sandesh. COVID is
the patient's mind here. Be little careful of telling them.
Yeah.
That's something which I think all the viewers should avoid reading the parameters and talk to patient. They can talk to doctors and explain. Doctors can explain them about this aspect. So coming back to ICU, you mentioned about in ICU what exactly is happening. You tell your patients, because I know government, that is in jumbo centers, you have CCTV everywhere and everybody can see what's happening. So you people observe on your television all the time the person going, what exactly is happening there?
We are going into the ICU, so we don't follow the rule of 50 plus not going in. We are actually going there, but with proper precautions and PPEs. So we have resident doctors round the clock, obviously in an ICU, very well trained. Plus the nurses, we try to maintain the ratios, and every day a round is taken by a ICU consultant in our hospital. Only
all the hospitals should do that, because I had a bad experience in one hospital in Malad. I personally was counseling one patient. I told him to admit, and what they did was something wrong. So that's a second factor. But then I can't say what wrong they did. But to come to the positive side again, friends, relax, be positive. होना है तो होना है, नहीं होना है तो नहीं होना है. You have to take your precautions. That's what I would like to say. And make your patient, whosoever get positive, boost their energy, make them happy. Just be jovial. If any last sentence anybody want to ask, because we have extended our time. So Ashish, I start with you. Any last comments from your side?
No, nothing really. I cannot over insist the proper use of a mask. I think that
and the shield.
And the shield. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Salil?
Yeah. So I think our take-home messages have been very clear. One is that you need to have COVID-appropriate behavior in the circumstances in which you are. Home isolation, home quarantine, I think a lot of things have been cleared about it. Vaccination also is equally important. Don't get scared, because there are people के वैक्सीन लेने के बाद बुखार आ जाता है, वैक्सीन लेने के बाद चक्कर आती है. मैंने व्हाट्सएप पे पढ़ा है कि वैक्सीन लेने के बाद पेशेंट को लकवा हो गया and वैक्सीन लेने के बाद बेहोश हो गया. So please don't go and fall for that rumors.
Salil, one question, as you asked about, somebody has asked just now a question. If I take vaccine, I was COVID positive, I take vaccine, after vaccination, can we transmit to somebody else any virus, something like that?
No, it won't, because we are generating antibodies. It's not an active disease that we are getting after the vaccination. So you will not be yourself getting the disease. You are getting antibodies. So you will not transmit.
So
unless you've got a breakthrough infection.
Unless you get a breakthrough infection.
So basically, after vaccination, you get fever, anything, you are not getting COVID virus to transmit to somebody else. That's correct, Salil?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's correct.
Avinash?
Yeah, I will just say two things. One, never interpret a blood test only on one blood test. So like Dr. Salil mentioned, one IL-6 high report or one D-dimer of 2000, don't go by that. The serial estimations are very important, along with the clinical judgment of that patient. Now, does the treatment change if the D-dimer is 1500 or it is 2100? No, the answer is no. But patients get panicky by those variations. I must tell you that these are biological variations. In many patients, they would occur on day-to-day basis. That doesn't mean deterioration or improvement. So always clinical picture outweighs any blood report or CT scan report. The second, there is a group of audiences who is waiting for Moderna and Pfizer or Sputnik vaccine to come, saying that they will get 95% immunity. There are some people who ask me they want to travel abroad to get Pfizer or Moderna. What is available in India is giving you 70% efficacy, but protection against mortality. So even if you have 25% chance of getting the COVID, it will be a mild COVID. So don't wait for the Modernas and Pfizers of the world. Take what is available to you. And lastly, don't go after doing your antibody testing after vaccination. Because even if it is high or low, you cannot take a repeat dose of vaccine. So unless somebody is immunocompromised, somebody is on steroid, somebody is on chemotherapy, where you expect the level of protection needs to be known, only those people need to do post-vaccination antibody, and not all the general public who just wants to know how much immunity I have.
But getting more antibody doesn't mean you are free to dance on the road, right?
No.
Ideally,
don't test it.
Yeah, yes, as I said, excepting special situation, you don't need to test it.
The people follow America, United States of America and others. And what is your take on this, Avinash? I want to ask you, because President of America said that if you are taken this vaccine and that vaccine, you did not wear the mask here and there. I mean, should one follow the Indian protocols, or should we follow international protocol and get more confused?
No, I think, see, the vaccines they are using are messenger RNA vaccines, which are giving 95% efficacy. So the transmission chances are 5%. In our case, though, our vaccines are reducing serious illness and mortality, you can get mild COVID. So in India, this doesn't apply, because you can still have low level intensity COVID infection in 30% of the patient. So you can never stop wearing mask in India. Secondly, when the COVID would end, I don't want to be pessimistic, but all of us are prepared for a 18-month battle from henceforth, before it becomes endemic and part of our life. So be prepared to wear mask at least for 18 months plus. There is no shortcut to it, and that's the most important prevention.
Kushrao.
Yeah. So I have just being a Parsi doctor, I'm trying to give a summary in Hindi in a way of poem. So bear with me and my pronunciations. COVID है घातक, यही है सच. मास्क पहने रखना ही है हमारा कवच. लस कहो या टीका या फिर वैक्सीनेशन, 2 डोज लेने पर ही होता है सेटिस्फैक्शन. गूगल, व्हाट्सएप, ट्विटर पर न्यूज ढूंढते रह जाओगे. सही जानकारी के लिए बीएमसी, गवर्नमेंट एंड डॉक्टर्स के पास काश आप आओगे. 1 2 3 कितनी भी वेव्स आए हमारे पास, तैरना हमें आता है. कोविड को मात देना ही हमारा संकल्प है, और ये हम सबको बहुत अच्छा आता है.
Wow, very good.
Very good. Superb, Kushrao, superb. So friends, just summarizing, number 1, mask is a must. Tight wearing mask. If somebody can breathe with 2 masks, wear it. Somebody wears 1 mask with shield, wear it. The point is, nothing should go inside the aerosols which are coming when you are speaking to someone. If you are speaking to an unknown person with the mask and the shield, still keep distance of 6 feet, because the aerosol doesn't go there. Hand washing, everything, sanitization is become common, so don't want to emphasize more on that. Whether you get vaccine or no vaccine and antibodies, mask is a must. When you meet unknown people, wearing mask is a must, distancing is a must. Double mask with shield is a must if you are going for a wedding or a crowded place. People who are traveling by public transport, please do not talk on the phone, neither talk to a next door person or next person who is just 6 inches away from you, because your aerosols are still coming out from your mask. So not speaking on the public transport is very, very important. Especially high risers in the lift, tell your societies to put a banner that no one should speak in the lift, so that aerosol doesn't move around in the lift, which is very important. One more thing which I didn't mention, or if you, Kushrao and Salil, agree with you, that high-rise people can have in their refugee area some beds, emergency bed with oxygen concentrator or oxygen, because larger societies have got doctors in their society who can do emergency till the patient has been taken from the society to the hospital. The society unity is very, very important. Don't discard. And asymptomatic watchman mates has to be tested as and when you people feel regularly, so that they move around, they don't get positive virus in your society. That's one of the most important aspects. So friend, even if you are friend, relative, loved one is in the hospital, just relax, don't get panic, because in panic you can do a lot of wrong things. Don't force your doctor to do something which doctor doesn't want to do it. Listen to doctor. Everyone who has come in this world has to go. So listen to doctors. If there is no chance, don't force them to do something where your loved one is traumatized. With a brave heart, you have to accept what doctors tell you and have a faith in doctors. So doctors are the frontliners. Then I will say BMC, government, etc. But doctors are the one which requires a softness, and please प्यार से बात करो उनके साथ. Of course, there are some black sheeps in every profession. You can take them to task positively and enjoy life. जो है तो है, जो होना है वो होना है. And what Kushrao just mentioned in his summary in Hindi, that's what is going to happen. We will meet again if there is any questions. Yes, Salil, you want to add something?
Oh, I was a little taken in the flow by Dr. Kushrao, so I also wanted to say only one line. ये सभी श्रोताओं को बहुत खुशी हुई मिलकर, सभी श्रोताओं को बहुत खुशी हुई मिलकर. Thank you, Dr. Sandesh Mahekar. Thank you, Dr. Sandesh Mahekar.
Thank you, Salil. Thank you very much. This program was brought to you by Healthy Smile, which is our NGO. We do a lot of work in dentistry. And Sun Pharma has helped me to get you people all this other back end work. They have done it. Thanks Sun Pharma, Nation especially. And hope we live happily. Whatever happens, we face it happily. And I think Jadu ki jappi bolte hai, there's a smile with COVID. COVID will not come to you. Don't try to fight with COVID, because when you fight, you also get hurt, even if you win. So be positive, and that's the last mantra. Be happy and be positive. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy this discussion with us. Thanks, Ashish, Khushraw, Avinash, and Salil, and hope we meet some other time for better discussion than serious discussion. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay safe, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you.
so much. Yeah.